A pivotal Supreme Court case could set a major precedent regarding religious freedom and public schools. The High Court has just heard arguments in a publicly funded religious charter school case in Oklahoma, the first in the nation. CBN's Brody Carter brings us a brief look at the details.
St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Charter School aims to become the nation's first publicly funded religious charter school.
So why this would be so helpful is, as a charter school, when a parent enrolls their child into their school, their taxpayer dollars flow directly to that school. So they have opportunities at funding that a private school would not. If the Supreme Court rules in favor of St. Isidore, what you're going to have are opportunities around the country that have never been given before, which is access to religious charter schools for children, where parents don't have to try to scrape together funds to get their kids a great education.
Critics, including the ACLU and its partners, argue public funding for religious schools violates the separation of church and state while undermining religious freedom. Regarding this case, they state Oklahoma taxpayers, including our plaintiffs, should not be compelled to finance a religious public school that intends to discriminate and indoctrinate students into a singular faith. St. Isidore Catholic School is represented by the First Liberty Institute, which argues that the Constitution's free exercise clause should take precedence over state laws.
This case has captured national focus, with 12 states supporting public funding for religious charter schools. Justice Amy Coney-Barrett has recused herself due to a personal connection, potentially setting the stage for a tie. I'm Brody Carter, CBN News.
Joining us with more is Erika Donalds, chair of America First Policy Institute's Center for Education Opportunity. Mrs. Donalds is also the wife of Congressman Byron Donalds and founder of Optima Ed, an education company focused on virtual reality learning experiences and virtual schools. Erika, one argument even from Christians is Supreme Court approval of taxpayer funding of this Catholic charter school would open the floodgates to funding of other religious schools, those operated by extremist Muslims, even Satanists. What say you?
Well, this is about not discriminating against an organization for its religious beliefs or religious teaching, something that the Supreme Court has upheld in recent cases. And that's why I think that in this Drummond case that the state of Oklahoma is going to lose, and we will have religious charter schools, perhaps of all types. But it's kind of like free speech, right? The rights established in the Constitution by our creator are given freely, no matter what type of speech that you're talking about, right? No matter what type of religion that we're talking about. So we have to be intellectually consistent that if we want free exercise of religion in these schools that have public funding, we're going to have to allow for all types of religion to take place.
Well, those opposing Oklahoma's funding of St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Charter School say the state's violating the Establishment Clause of the U.S. Constitution. So what is your response to that argument?
Charter schools, although they are considered public schools and have had the benefit of being treated as public schools throughout their history, are private entities that are contracted with the government. So a private entity that is running a school cannot be discriminated against in its ability to have a charter with the government to teach students. Because of its religious affiliation or religious teaching. And so this is going to be a difficult line to navigate. However, based on recent Supreme Court precedent, I believe that the government cannot discriminate against this private organization of which it has agreed to contract for public schooling because of its religious affiliations. And we're going to have to navigate what that looks like going forward for these what are considered to be public schools, public charter schools.
Well, how strong do you think that argument? You had mentioned the free speech issue. That's the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. How strong and valid is that argument that they're discriminating against religion?
Well, we've seen several recent cases where if a government program is widely available to any entity or organization to apply for public funding, they cannot choose one organization or another simply because that other organization is religiously affiliated. And so if that holds true, and you talk about charter schools, if Oklahoma is awarding charters to schools that meet certain criteria, in this case, financial, operating, and academic performance, which St. Isidore does meet, they cannot discriminate against this charter school that meets all of that criteria for a charter, but also has a religious affiliation. I think it's a very strong argument. And that's why many in the charter school sector rightfully are concerned, because they've been considered public schools. And if they're deemed religious and not a public school, what does that mean for the entire sector and all the statutes that depend on charters being public?
So what can you tell us about the educational difference of these religious schools compared to regular secular schools, public schools? What does testing show?
Well, in this particular instance, St. Isidore actually has outstanding test results, well above Oklahoma's average performance and performance of other virtual charter schools, and which is why we believe that parents should have this publicly funded option for their children. We really need a free market in education. We need more high quality options to enter the marketplace, whether they're religious or not, whether they're virtual or not, whether they're charter or private. We've got to open up the free market and allow more innovation and competition on quality measurements in order for parents to have the most quality options available to them for their children's needs.
Okay, this Supreme Court ruling is expected by late June. It would be precedent-setting. So what would a favorable or disfavorable ruling mean for educational opportunity in the United States?
Well, it's going to start, of course, with this one school in Oklahoma being approved, and Oklahoma's families having this additional high-quality virtual option that may align with their religious affiliation available to them through public funding, where they would not have to pay tuition. But I expect that similarly high-performing private organizations are going to apply for charters across the United States in order to receive public funding, especially in states where religious schools have been discriminated against, have not been allowed to apply for charters. And in some states, charter is the only way for a private organization to run a school that is publicly funded if they don't have ESAs or other scholarships. So I expect it will give rise to more high quality school options for families across the country, which is something that we want.
Okay, we'll wait and see what SCOTUS does. Erika Donalds, America First Policy Institute's Center for Education Opportunity. Thank you for being with us. All our best to your husband, who's running for governor of Florida. May God sustain him in his campaign.
Thank you so much.